Right, if you're just joining us, welcome again to this new forum. We're going to give ourselves one more minute just to get everybody to join, and then we'll get started with the discussion. So just bear with us. If you are already connected, don't go anywhere, stay with us, and we'll get started shortly. Okay, while we're waiting for the people to join and log into the platform, I'd like to again welcome all of you to this new forum organized by the Global Supply Chain Council. As some of you know, many of you are regular to those events. We do those discussions, roundtables, and forums quite often, pretty much once a week. And today's topic is on supply chain leadership, driving change, and fostering innovation. So we're going to be talking about how supply chain team function, processes are impacting companies with changes and elevate also the innovation process that might happen in the organization. So it's a pretty interesting topic. I know that some of you are going for it, and you'll be interested in hearing from our panelists today about their views on this topic. So first, let's get started with maybe a round of introduction so you guys can understand who's here today for the talk. So I'll get maybe first Christina to introduce herself, and we can go around the screen with the others. Yeah, Christina, welcome. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Max, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of you. Very happy to see many of you are repeat participants because this is a very interesting series, right? So today's series is about change, fostering innovation, which is a topic that we can't live without, in today's VUCA change. So for myself, I've been in procurement for a long, long time, as far as I can remember. My last position was a CPO for Air Liquide, and that was industrial gas. And before that was in technology, in aviation, in telco as well. So integrated supply chain is something that I spent a lot of time on, and with various diverse teams across Asia Pacific. So today's topic, hopefully I can add some value and share some best practices, good practices, Max, so that everyone can just, and also learn from all of you, from all your questions as well. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks again. Arnel, welcome. Go ahead. Yeah, if you make sure to unmute. Yeah.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. Nice to be here. Thank you, Max, for inviting me again as one of the panelists in this forum. I'm Arnel Gamboa. I'm the VP for Logistics for Ace Hardware, Philippines. I'm based off from Manila. I have about 2.5 decades of experience from various fields and functions in supply chain. I've been a past president of the Supply Chain Management Association of the Philippines, or SEMAP. So I'm very active in the professional and networking as well. Ace Hardware, as you know, is the biggest cooperative in terms of hardware globally. We have about 4,500 stores globally. And the Philippines, we're connected here with the SM Retail Group, which is also the biggest conglomerate here in the Philippines. I'm quite excited to start off this discussion with my co-panelists here. And like Christina, I'm also hoping to learn something new with all of your participation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Arnel. We have Sachin as well joining us. Welcome.
Thank you, Max. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Hope all of you are doing good. I'm Sachin, based out of Bangalore in India, working with AkzoNobel. It's a paints and coatings manufacturer headquartered in Netherlands, leading a supply chain design and analytics practice globally. Before this, working with organizations like Amazon, Accenture into various supply chain functions, demand planning, IBP, supply planning, network design. Looking forward to engaging 1 hour of session with all of you. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot. Okay, we have Hang as well joining us.
Hi everyone. I'm Hong Nguyen, Vietnamese in origin, but now I'm based in Singapore for the past 20 years. I've started work with Procter& Gamble in the UK in various supply chain function, from very technical engineering to program project management to core kind of category and all kind of aspect of business and planning. My previous role was kind of leading the IVP transformation to the current role that I'm holding, which is kind of APAC transformation for within Estee Lauder companies. I'm really happy to be here and be part of this conversation. So looking forward to it.
Thank you. And then we have Omar as well. Welcome, Omar.
Hi, everybody, and hi, Max, and thank you for inviting me for the panel. My name is Omar Kazzaz. I'm the founder of CEO of Kazzaz Advisory Group. My background has been always in global trade, global logistics, and global supply chains. I work with CEOs and their teams to negotiate strategically contracts and to optimize supply chain by cutting cost and getting cost out of the supply chain, not down the supply chain. I'm looking forward to sharing any information with the audience and with my colleagues here in the panel, as well as learning a few things along the way. Thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, so I want to remind again everyone which are joining us that we want to make this session as interactive as we can. So if you have any questions, feel free to use a chat. You have a chat bubble located at the bottom right of your screen. You can ask questions at any time to any of the panelists, and we will, of course, make sure to take those questions as they come. So feel free to post any questions at any time. So the topic again today is on how supply chain leadership is driving change and fostering innovation. So let me jump right into the core issue about I wanted to get your views and if you could share maybe based on your own experience some of the example of how supply chain innovation programs have had a positive ripple effect across the company. So so I'm going to take your views from each of you. And if you have some example that you can share, well, we can start with that then. Anybody?
I'll just kick it off, Max, if I can. As I was saying just now, I've been in procurement and supply chain for a long time, right? So I have the benefit of comparing how it was before and how it is now today. So what I can really say is that in today's supply chain world, the focus has suddenly been on suppliers and third parties and all these external parties that we are engaging with. So when you come to talk about change and innovation, we shouldn't exclude all our external partners. So this is the time where organizations need to be very conscious and in fact, KPIs of the teams and so on to be very inclusive of not just our own teams, but those of the suppliers as well. So, and of course, you may have tens of thousands of suppliers, but I think as leaders today, we need to be very focused on what's relevant and what matters for our industry. And I'm just going to start with that pitch first, that we are zooming into the supplier community. And it hasn't been as important previously than it is now today. And we all know why, right? So I'm just going to let someone continue from there. Yep.
Thanks, Christina. Anybody else would like to get started again? Yeah, Arnel.
Yeah, Max. Let me chime in very quickly with what Christina has mentioned. And I think, Christina, I couldn't agree more with what you said, that today we are basically at the standpoint, we are at the cusp of a big revolutionary change as far as supply chain is concerned. Because as it is today, I think more than ever, there has been many moving parts as far as supply chain, globally speaking as well. And with the influx or nexus of information coming in from everywhere, anytime now, I think more than ever, we have to make sure whatever change we apply in supply chain will be very meaningful and very practical to all of our operations. And in my experience in handling different functionalities in supply chain, from sourcing, procurement, planning, warehousing, distribution, and logistics, I think it would be very good to drive that when you talk about change and innovation, it's not just about applying the right technology in terms of, let's say, automation, in terms of upscaling the output, but also taking a look at the total perspective as well. So when I say this, I'm pointing out to a particular model that I've been using whenever I apply change management in the area where I work in. So this is called the golden triangle, and the golden triangle basically involves three elements. It's people, process, and technology. So basically, we really have to balance out whenever we're looking at innovation, look at these three elements. There has to be a very good model in terms of changing what we have as far as people are concerned. So when I say people, are there going to be changes in terms of roles and responsibilities? Are there going to be changes when it comes to deliverables? When it comes to process, are we going to streamline the process and rearrange the steps? And to technology, what kind of automation or mechanization are we looking at? So it has to be holistic. So in short, Max, what I'm trying to say is that when we begin to map out our change management plan, it has to be end to end. So you begin with the end in mind. That's all from me, Max. Thank you.
Thank you, Arnel.
Yeah, maybe I just kind of, connect the dots a little bit. There is a very interesting concept, especially in the, with the advent of kind of AI and how, often it's being referred to of late. There is a prediction that singularity, which is the point in time where, machine is actually more intelligent than human, is coming in 2045, right? And recently it's been revised down to 2029. So that's kind of the latest prediction, if you like. However, if you think about the data and the amount of data, I think Arnel kind of alluded to the vast amount of data being generated, whether it's through kind of the supply chain data, manufacturing, IoTs, devices, what have you, right? The data in itself is being generated at the rate where I believe that we are at the point of singularity, if you like, that we're just overwhelmed with so much data that we don't know what to do with them, and how to, as corporation, especially within supply chain, how do we harness those data in order to deliver, value, benefit to the corporation? That would be, my kind of contribution in these questions of, how supply chain innovation can benefit corporations.
Yeah. Okay. Makes sense. Yeah. Yeah, Omar.
Yeah, the most important part that I would like to reiterate that Arnel said and Hank touched on is the end-to-end part, because in most cases, especially the bigger the company, the more silos you have. And if we're not looking end-to-end, maybe Sachin looks at his side and he sees some benefits, but if we don't look at that benefit, to him could be detrimental to me in another location or another country or another division. So looking end to end is paramount. As also in terms of it has to be encompassing. The change usually, yes, it has to. Yes, it happens at the top, but it has to be cascaded. Whether it's the change in technology or whether it's the change in the qualitative part or the quantitative part, most of the times it comes from the top and it stays at the top, or maybe it doesn't go anywhere. So for the we have to cascade it to make sure that every employee knows how it's going to affect the person before him and the person to whom the process is moving to benefit from that change. Otherwise, the change will be very local, non-beneficial.
Yeah, Sachin.
And just on
please,
that point, right, Omar, is that yes, internally end to end, but we need to go beyond, because supplier community, like it or not, they need to be aware of everything that we're doing. Whatever change, whatever innovation, they have to be with us. Otherwise it's going to be disconnected, right?
The biggest advantage of that, thank you so much for mentioning, Christina. The biggest advantage, or actually, let's start with the disadvantage. In one of my previous lives, I've been in situations where major MNCs will go to the supplier and will say, "We know what we're doing. Do it
Yep.
like this."
Yep.
But that's not called partnership. What happens
Yep.
is that that same supplier probably has 20, 30, 40 companies like
Mm.
yours, and they have
Mm-hmm.
seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. We are
Yeah.
not benefiting from our sometimes arrogance, sometimes blind. We're wearing blinders. So we're not treating them as partners for real because they may have solutions. And that's what I meant by cutting cost, not down the supply chain. Anybody can do that, but out of it because of innovation that they may come up with that we're doing that
Yep.
we're wasting time and money on,
Yep.
that they can say, why are you doing that? So thank you so
Mm-hmm.
much for thinking of the
Yep.
external part.
Correct.
Absolutely,
Yep.
without a
Yeah.
doubt.
Yep.
Sachin?
Absolutely correct. I think building on top of what my co-panelist already mentioned, that the change has to be brought in top down. It has to be communicated right from the top to the bottom of the employees, so that it's crystal clear to everyone what is the change expected to be, what, and the communication lines should be transparent, extremely clear. What is, and the messaging should be consistent in each and every communication, that this is what we aspire to be, and we should lay the roadmaps and the foundations corresponding to it. In terms of that, our end states or the metrics corresponding to the end state should be clearly defined, identified, and we should as a team work towards achieving that. So these are the additional pointers that I wanted to touch upon on top of what has already been discussed.
The top-down approach that you mentioned, Sachin, I think there's a word of caution as well, because there are middle managers who may not really appreciate or understand because they're sandwiched, okay? Sandwiched between the top management, and they've got their teams that they need to communicate. So as middle managers, our role is to translate, break it down into parts that people can understand, and not just shove it down the throat and say, just do it this way, that way. No, that's where the resistance is going to come, right? So in order to prevent resistance, we'll have to make sure we break them down into actionable tasks, just so that they know exactly what they need to do, right? So that's part of the
Yeah.
change management. Yeah.
Absolutely correct, Christina. I think that's the messaging that we should have.
Yeah.
And once the benefits or the intent is clear in terms of
Mm-hmm.
doing the change, then it becomes quite easily to clearly articulate and communicate to everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
If you're just joining us, I want to remind again that you can ask question if you have any question related to supply chain innovation and the impact on the corporation, how supply chain leadership can play a role. If you have any specific issue that you're facing within your company, go ahead, use the chat function, which is located at the bottom right of your screen, and we'll be happy again to take your question. So let's continue our talk about this topic because it's a fairly high level topic and we can cover it and we can probably talk about it for hours. But I wanted to talk about the resistance that companies or actually organization might have when those change are being pushed. So what tactics have you found most effective in overcoming resistance to change within your own organization, especially from the stakeholders or teams who may be hesitant to adopt those new supply chain practices?
Most of the times, if most of the times, what happens, either the top brass comes up with the change that's they think is necessary without any consultation, as Christina mentioned, with middle or higher managers or even lower level managers. And as she said, it's just here it is, here's where we're going. They don't know why we're going there. They don't know, as she said, we don't know why we're doing it and where we're going to begin with. The thing that I saw that works a lot is appeal to three things. One is the ethos, logos, and pathos. We have to appeal to their authority, which is okay, you're a manager for a reason, We hired you because you're an expert at something. If we're going to end up hiring external consultants, then why do we have me here? Okay, so that appeals to the authority, and that's the ethos. Then we have to appeal to their pocket. Maybe meaning by that, when you're talking about explaining that, look, this is not only concerning the company, you, Mr. Employee or Mrs. Employee, are going to benefit from it as well, because you're going to be learning something that you may keep with you in my company, or you, even if you go somewhere else, you're still going to be able to benefit from that change, what you're learning today and changing too. So that talks to their pocket and their learning ability and formation in terms of education. At the same time, it's talking to their authority, and it's talking also to their sense of achievement at the company. Because I'm going to be, if I'm involved and if I have an opinion and I know that you're going to take my opinion into consideration, I am more likely to work God knows how many times harder to help you, Mr. CEO or Mrs. CEO, get to where you want to be.
Mm.
So back to ethos, logos, pathos. That's what I thought I saw work. It's not. It's
Yep.
not. I mean, there are other ways, I'm sure, but uh, that's what worked in my experience.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, but sometimes it's not just top down, and when you want to change and drive all these, revolutionary or evolutionary, whatever it is, it may take a couple of years preliminary to that. So meaning to say, people need to be involved from bottom up. What are your pain points and why are we changing? Are we changing for the sake of changing? Just because somebody else is changing, we need to change, blah, blah, blah. It's not like that. And also we need to think about people's experiences before that. Maybe the previous transformation was painful. Maybe it didn't work because of certain reasons, right? So knowing all these things first is important. And I also think that if we have a platform, even though you have launched a change, we need constant feedback. A platform where people can just voice their grievances, because nothing is going to be smooth sailing. Yeah. So it's more of a interactive session versus top down one way, Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So let me double down on what Omar and Christina has mentioned, Max. I think they're trying to zero in when it comes to clarity of communication. And this is quite important, I would say, from my experience in terms of project management and change management initiatives. We really have to involve the stakeholders, especially the tenured ones, where I think you would all agree with me, where most of the resistance would be coming from, and they would be the most highly affected when it comes to the changes that would be expected from all of these projects or programs. At the end of the day, I think what's important to make mention here is that there's a clear structure when it comes to the implementation strategy. And there's also, again, a clarity of roles and expected responsibilities coming from all of the stakeholders. I would also add on one of the tools that I usually use aside from the people, process, and technology framework is, if you're familiar with the book authored by John Cotter, which is Leading Change. There's a particular framework there, which is the organizational change process methodology. It's an 8-step process, but basically, the first step that I'd like to mention here is that you have to build a sense of urgency. We have to get the buy-in of all of the stakeholders inside the company or the business that this is something that we all want. We all agree to get. We all agree to make happen. And when we do that, again, it will boil down to creating the right vision. We have to make sure that it's clear to them where we want to go, and it has to be communicated to them very clearly how we are going to make this happen and who's going to be responsible, what benefits are we going to get, and if we don't execute this, what are the consequences we need to face. And in my experience, and I'd like to again reiterate what Omar has mentioned in terms of getting the buy-in or the appeal of people around you with ethos, pathos, and logos. And normally, I would be using pathos and logos, which means reputation and logic or data. And you would be able to convince even your hardest critics, because of my experience. I can say this. Once they see that everything you've told them, you've taught them to do, is actually happening. So your biggest critics or your biggest detractors at the end of the day, when they see results coming in, performance changing, they will be your best supporters at the end of the day. And take it from me, once we do that, you'll be able to drive the organization better next time. Everyone will be buying in, will be on the same boat when you launch your next project. Thank you.
This
And
is
I
Yeah,
think
I
interesting.
think
now,
too.
yeah,
Yeah.
and now the CEO, when he goes around talking about why the change and all these, right, in all his town halls, the one thing that cannot be omitted is answering the question that people are asking themselves. What is it in for me? Why am I doing it? What benefit is it going to bring to me? I know it's for the company, but what about me, my role, and my rice bowl, for example? So if we can allay all those fears and kind of make them settled, just like everything is peaceful, everything's cool, that is, I think, going to be very, very effective, at least from my experience.
Yeah, Han?
I
Christina,
fully
you
agree, Christina. Very good.
took the words right out my mouth. I was gonna say,
Yeah.
wasn't it for me? But maybe two other things that in addition to the what's in it for me, and this is more of as we move along the transformation journey. One is I think team have already mentioned kind of involve key stakeholders early, right? So they're part of the solution and not being told this is what needs to be done in a certain timeline. So that's kind of a way to one build trust as well as ownership. The second is look out for and enroll change champions or ambassadors as part of the program. As we go through the transformation journey. And last but not least is really continue to kind of don't wait for the big milestone to recognize. So to have some kind of regular recognition as we go along, right? It could be a very simple things, after a stakeholder review, or team meeting, what have you. So a lot of these are small things that I think we can do in order to help really get the organization to rally in a certain transformation or change direction.
I think
Okay.
completely aligned with Hung on that topic. Maybe I'll chip in for a minute, Max, on this
Yeah.
topic. It's really, really important to break down the task into smaller milestones and track the mechanisms. If the mechanisms, processes, and the changes that we are bringing in are working or going in the correct direction, that gives a sense of confidence to the stakeholders who are engaged and involved to see if things are really working nice or we are in the right path or direction. If we continue on this journey, probably the critics that we have will 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 even be supportive of the fact and the idea that we are up to. So these small steps can bring in or drive a small change mechanisms in the entire hierarchy or organizations.
Okay. So we
But,
have a couple
but
of questions. Yeah, Christina, you want to ask
yeah, just
something
the
quickly?
last part is just that all that we are saying here is that nothing is going to be hanky-dory all the while. Okay, so we as leaders, we have to be really honest and transparent. And then if something goes south, we'll have to say, yes, that didn't work because of whatever, and, to replace that, we're going to do this. So we have to be super honest and be pragmatic about it, because we don't want to mislead people to think that everything's going to be fine. It won't be, so yeah, that's going to
Yeah.
help with the resistance a little, I think.
Okay, so let's take a few of the questions what's been posted already. And let me take this question from Brett first. I was asking, has there been any difference in the approach to innovation and implementing change between pre and post pandemic? Have you seen any changes as a result of that pandemic?
Let me try to crack that first, Max. Yes, Brent, thank you for that question. It's very relevant. I think there's a bigger focus today as far as risk assessment and management is concerned. I do think further that when you look at innovation today, there's a bigger scope when you're assessing risk. It's more 360 degrees now, and it's more global than local today. So maybe as you put it in your next question, I've read it. People are now looking at what's happening at the corner of the world. So you have the Red Sea issue right now that's affecting the lead time for shipments. Sometimes this is also affecting the port at Singapore with some congestion as well. We also have some conflicts still being witnessed and experienced today as an after effect of the Ukraine-Russia war. So those are just some of the things that we see that might affect our decisions when we come to realize we need to innovate. These are things that we have to consider now. I think Hung has mentioned about the eventuality of singularity, and generative AI is also one of the things that's driving hype today as far as innovation is concerned. I think most companies are into the bandwagon of applying AI to whatever project that they have in the company, be it supply chain or otherwise or whatnot. As long as you have AI, I think it's cool, right? But also there's a risk at the flip side of using AI. Some question even if you use AI to automate things, will we have the same jobs as we do today, or some jobs might be obsolete or outdated come one day. So I think that's the biggest change that I could say. The risk assessment and management has been more emphasized more than ever. Thanks.
Thank you, Arnel.
For this question, Brad, I was thinking about, and thanks for the question, because the pre and a post pandemic is a huge factor. And I think the pandemic itself is a blessing in disguise, because I was looking more about the people and the communication piece, right? So the way we're going to implement change and innovation, it's going to be very different. Because of the pandemic, people now realize that they could work from anywhere. For example, before that, any communication of change, we'll take it for granted that everyone's going to be in the office. It's going to be super easy where you can have face-to-face interaction with people, right? Today, change champions and change leaders will have to really learn how to be effective communicators in a hybrid situation, in a very widely diverse, remote employees as well. So how do you bring all these, moving parts together is something we'll have to really think about, Brett.
Yeah, Omar?
Yeah, I wanted to. We're talking about before and after, and what Christina mentioned is so important because it couldn't. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's before, after, in the middle, tomorrow, or yesterday, or 100 years ago, or the future, which is communication. Usually, Gartner every year they publish a report of the most or the best supply chains, the best 25 supply chains. And out of the 25 best supply chains, they have a group called the Masters, which is made up of course, Apple, Amazon, Procter and Gamble, and I think they added, I don't remember what they added McDonald's a couple of years ago to the Masters of supply chain. Excuse me. And then the question was, what makes these supply chains, the 25, the best, and what makes the masters the masters? And I'm thinking maybe it's the hoard of cash that they have, or maybe it's the how many distribution centers they have, or how big they are. It turned out to be I turned out to be completely wrong. It was communication. And what they meant by communication was how would they communicate, how the level of communication, the higher the communication, the better the master of supply chain. So, and it was communication between people and communication between machines. So that's something that is going to be always the case, whether it's before pandemic, after pandemic. We cannot live without it. And if we do live without it, we all know where it ends.
Okay. Thank you. I just wanted to maybe interrupt the flow of questions by just asking you a very simple questions. What is supply chain innovation for you? If you had to kind of define it in one or two sentences, it could be procurement also, supply chain, logistics, or procurement innovation. How do you define innovation in your own organization?
Be ahead of the competitors, be ahead of time, and adding the most value given our natural, our, I must say, our inborn resources as a company. That's my simple definition. Our, let's say, uh,
Yeah.
what are our strengths basically? How can we
Okay.
channel our strengths to be ahead of the curve and ahead of the competitors for the customer ultimately?
Yeah, and it's different for different company, and the baseline is different. The come from and to is different. So for from a simple framework standpoint, whatever that the company is not doing today is innovation. It may not be innovation for another company. For example, Procter and Gamble might have done it 10 years ago. And that's a real case, right? When it came to Estee Lauder companies, some of the practice is totally dated in my kind of from my point of view, if I were to compare the two companies. But is that the right thing to do for the current company that you're in? So in the end, I think whatever that is new for the current environment, corporation enterprise that you're in, that would deliver value, and you have to define that what that value is, whether it's increasing sales, reducing stock out, excess, agility. There's a whole host of things that we can go through, right? Customer service, so on and so forth. So it is a long list of things that different corporation will have to define for themselves. But ultimately, it is coming back to benefits, right? What's in it for me as a corporation, and then down to the individual functions and individual teams. Yeah.
Yeah. I think as per me, it is something which the organizations are not up to and which they intend to do, which will have an overall organization wide impact across functions or teams. And this will probably be a change either in the technology or tool aspect, or this can be a large scale process transformation changes that we aspire to. The ultimate objective or the end state will be either in terms of customer improvement or customer satisfaction level improvements, reduction in lead times, or the lower cost that we intend to provide it to our customers. So those are the end states that might lead to this innovation.
Okay.
I was thinking about, in simple terms, it means that every organization needs to think, needs to be, comfortable for being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
whatever you're doing today, you're very comfortable doing it. So please be uncomfortable about something. Inject discomfort in all the things that you do, because you can't get away with just being comfortable. So you have to be comfortable for being uncomfortable. Then it will mean success and innovation for you. I mean,
Get
I'm
ready to
just
take
thinking,
risk. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and all those things, right? And think differently and do differently and whatever else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Arnel, what would be logistic innovation for you today?
Yeah. For me, Max, it's just something initiative, something that, as mentioned by my co-panelists, not been done before. It's something new that improves the status quo, that might cover processes, products, services, and adds value and growth, not only to the company, but also to the customer as well. And also brings about customer satisfaction at the end of the day. The aim, I think, is not to be the best of the best, not to be the cream of the crop, but to find the right fit solution for your business and your company as of today. So I think when it comes to innovation, I would agree with Hong. It depends with the organization and the conditions that you have wherever you are today. And I think it's going to be a combination of what resources you have within the company and how creative you can be as far as making your strategic plans.
Okay. We have a question again from Brett about resistance to change, and he's asking, what is your view of the recent U.S. East Gulf Coast port dispute and the immense resistance of the union is demonstrating to innovation or automation of port operations in the East Gulf Coast? I mean, this is a good example again of your suppliers or partners who are resisting change and innovation in some ways in their own, operations. So, what's your take of this? Do you see that? I mean, this is again a U.S. example, but do you see that happening also within the APAC region, do you have what's your take?
Since I went last, I want to go first in this one, Max. So I think it all boils down to, again, communication, as emphasized by my co-panelists just a couple of minutes ago. Whenever there is a fear of the unknown, that is when resistance is very high. And I was just to mention, I was just in a conference with Department of Trade here in the Philippines, and we were just talking about the effects of AI when it comes to the relevance of jobs, how jobs will be applied in the future, and if there's a possibility of losing jobs, as I think mentioned by Brent right now, when it comes to the union workers in the East Coast. And they're afraid of applying automation because it might cost them their jobs. And I think, as we discussed yesterday in that forum, it's a matter of updating what's the scope of work when it comes to the future of jobs. And part of it is upskilling, Max. I think the only way to make sure that our jobs will be secured in the future, come what may, AI or not, is to make sure that we are future proof. So when it comes to transitioning into jobs that are future proof, we need to be sure that right skills are going to be there, going to be present. So I think some of the things that are buzzwords today are jobs like data analysts, risk analysts, data scientists, business analysts. So I think moving forward, the dialogue should lean more into how we can upgrade and upscale the jobs that we have today and slowly show to all of these union workers how we can also help them in terms of adding value to their current employers or industries for that matter. Thank you.
Yeah, we can talk about the upscaling a little bit later, because I think that's a good point from Arnel about, you need to, as you drive innovation, you need to be ready to deal with those changes and be able to follow what's happening, because if you're not, then you might be out of a job. Well, let's talk about it a bit later. Omar, what's your take on those? Because you're in the US and you probably follow that dispute with the unions there. Yeah.
Unions, Max, have always won. Always, without, I mean, if the last example on the East Coast is one, and not too far, not too long before it on the West Coast was another example where they won. But it's a temporary win, because, as Christina said, if they would think about it, what's in it for me? Because if I'm a union member and I'm thinking, what's in it for me? If I stay on the status quo, it looks like I won 66% increase today, but basically I know nothing, because sooner or later that train is going to pass me. And if I'm not on the train, and if I didn't think what's in it for me, not today, in the future, then I'm going to be in bad shape. So temporarily, yes, it's a big win, but long term, it's not a big win. The only thing
It's not
that's
going to
helping
work.
the unions is that the industry itself is not advanced, basically. The logistics industry. So we talk about blockchain. I don't see it anymore. It was the fad for a while, right? Everybody's talking about blockchain a couple of years ago. Okay, where is it now? Internet of Things. I think Arnel mentioned Internet of Things. Where is it today? So that's helping them a little bit, but in other industries, not good. I mean, not good for them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the concept of what's in it for me, I mean, just take the union example, right? When change comes, the emotions run very high. Okay, and you don't really think properly. So you really need to think about the change in the change, because that's where it's going. But how often do people act rationally and think like, okay, I have to think long term? No, because the change is disrupting me, my life, what I'm used to. We are creatures of habit, right? And I don't like this discomfort. So going back to what I was saying, you have to learn to be comfortable by being uncomfortable. Then you'll be able to, embrace change. As leaders, we'll have to learn how to do that, frankly, otherwise it's going to be really hard. Yeah.
And you know what? That's why, Christina. Thank you so much for that. That's what I'm thinking about when I said strategic negotiations, because in regular negotiations, not always, but in this case, we're talking about the ILU and the ILW in the past. It's like we're starting on with big animosity. But if we think strategically, that animosity should be, you're my partner, I need you, you need me. Let's think about it strategically, and not strategically doesn't mean only today. Strategically mean for the future. How are you and me going to benefit? Enter the negotiation in that strategic sense. I'm an asset for you, you're an asset for me. You're not my enemy. So
so in this case, I think this is another good example where, ideally you would have a more, to your point, Omar, take a step back and look at this in a kind of a long-term, what is the right solution standpoint, and not just about, negotiations, right? From a government policy standpoint, how do we think about upskilling, reskilling? How do we, articulate and ensure that, everyone is on the same journey? Because it is uncomfortable, to your point, Christina, in terms of uncertainty, right? Because, even I hazard to make a guess, but, teams on the call and even the panelists today, if I ask you the question of what does AI mean for you, right? The answer is going to be very, very different. And how would it be impacting you? And again, the answer to that question is very much, right now there is no consensus, right, in terms of what that means for the individual, what that means for the industry. So there has to be a little bit more deliberate and strategic work done between government policies, a lot more forward-looking, working with industries, and of course, ultimately, it comes back down to people who are impacted right now. Which is what they're seeing, right? Tomorrow, do I have a job or not? Yes or no, right? Because I don't know whether the team here have seen some of the 100% automated kind of driverless and Max, you're in China, so you're probably already using some of that service, right? Which is not kind of in abundance, but at some point in time, it will become ubiquitous, right? It become part of a way of life that we're going to have to get used to.
That's so true, Hank. And I also, Max, I want to add also that this is a specific case, a special case, not a specific case, because in the best case scenarios, you have the academic world for talent production, you have the government, and you have corporations working together in society to make the best outcomes. Okay, all three have to be on the same page. In this case, the reason why it's a special case, between parentheses or whatever, it was very political. We have the upcoming elections coming, and I want to side with him because I want votes, and I want to side against her because of other political reasons. So it was so messed up. No strategy, or if there's a strategy, is how do I get my best without? It's a zero-sum game. The strategy was, strategy should not be a zero-sum game. It doesn't have to be a zero-sum game. So just my 2 cents.
Okay, we got a few more minutes, and I wanted to take that question from Shandan, who's asking, do you think supply chain function and marketing function should be under one head or synchronized to get optimized operation benefits? considering future of marketing and supply chain will be based on data analytics. So that's an interesting question. Anybody would like to take it, Sachin?
Max, I'll take that because we recently onboarded on a similar journey within our company where supply chain as a function was altogether supporting the different BUs that we have. And quite recently, we made this change where the different supply chain elements of individual BUs will roll up to the BU directors, where the BU director will be responsible for marketing, sales, commercial, along with the supply chain. So this why this change, one of the elements to bring this change was there was a demand planning lying in a different function, whereas the supply planning was altogether different, and there was very less talk between, or the very limited connection between these two, thus affecting the high inventory levels, high slops or slow movers, affecting the entire supply chain. Just to make it work and just to make it in close coordination, this change was brought, and I think we are still in the experimentation phase, because the change has come in very recently, but with the positive intent, we see that this gonna make a huge benefit to the larger organization.
This is interesting. I think supply chain is becoming such a force inside our organization that it's kind of pulling all the different departments under their own efforts. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, Christina.
Yeah, I just wanted to say this, right? When I saw the question from Chandan, I was thinking about the left brain and the right brain. All of us have two parts of the brain. The left brain will be the data, the logic and everything, right? The right brain is more creative, more visual, and more intuitive type of thing. So I think in any organization, there'll be the teams that are more right brain type driven, and there'll be some who will be more left brain driven. But the point is that the teamwork that we're looking at, is greater, and you can't compare it like, it has to be greater than the sum of all its parts, okay? So you can have all the engineers and all the technical people who are very left brain directed. They live by everything by data, full stop, no emotions. I don't know. But then the flip side of it is there are people who are just going on with, things that they just feel, it's just feeling, So by and large, I think in any organization, you need both teams, right? But not everything can be just data driven. Some things, well, maybe 80-20 rule.
All right, we got another question I'd like to take. This is from Sanjeev. He's saying it's challenging to change manage an innovative tool implementation in a situation where the team anticipate a potential job loss. What could be a passive approach to handle these kind of situations?
Maybe I can kind of take this one. When you say passive approach to change, I would kind of change that to a proactive approach to change, and be a lot more transparent in terms of what transformation or what change is going to be impacting the organizations and even the individuals, right? So in the best outcome is to be able to understand exactly how the individuals as well as the organization is going to be impacted, and have that communicated at the right time, but in a more proactive and transparent way. I would advocate, because if I'm reading this as it is written, I would definitely not recommend the passive approach, right? Meaning just let it happen until after the implementation, and then, by the way, you don't have a job anymore, right? That's how I kind of interpret the question.
Thank you, Hung. Anybody else on this question before we wrap up?
Sometimes it works, Max. This doesn't always work, but back to communication and strategy. I cannot stress strategy enough, because if we're looking only at silos, yes, these 25 people should not be here anymore because of that change. But if we're thinking from 50,000 feet, and if we're thinking strategically, maybe those 25 people, or maybe 20 of them, or 5 of them, or 10 of them, could be sitting in a different kind of the organization, where not everybody's gone. But if we don't have the 360 look, yes, there will be some damage. So the damage may not be gone altogether. It could be reduced sometimes. I've seen it in action, where people were moved from sometimes as low as department to department, or function to function, or BU to BU, to maintain the cohesion of the team. Sometimes.
Okay.
Max,
Great.
let me just quickly add
Yeah,
on
Arnel, yeah.
with what
Final
Hong
thought.
just mentioned. Yeah, so I think more than having a very clear communication line, it also starts with having, again, back to what I've mentioned about John Cotter's organizational change process, with a very good vision, and it has to be clear with everyone. If you're aiming to change the functionalities, the roles of people on board, from being more physical in terms of workload to having a handle in terms of data and analyzing that data, it has to be very clear so that when the transition happens, no one is going to fear that they're going to lose their jobs. They're going to be trusting the process because it's clear to them how it's gonna happen, how it's going to transition at the end of the day, and they have job security also at the end of the day. Thank you, Max.
Okay, well, thank you very much again for being with us today. We kind of tackle this other topic. It is a complex and fairly high-level subject, but I think we got started and we covered a few things, and I'm happy that we managed to have a good discussion about this. We'll probably continue the discussion in another event on that same topic, because again, that's something we can talk about for some time. Thank you very much again for sharing, for being here, Arnel, Christina, Sachin, Hung, and Omar. I appreciate. Thanks again for those questions also from the audience. If you came late or if you missed it, this is being recorded. You'll be able to see the replay after, just probably by tomorrow. The recording will be available on chain.net. So thank you again for taking the time, for being with us. And we look forward to see you at our next event, which will be as early as next week. So see you next time.
Thanks
Bye.
very
Thank you
much.
so much.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Goodbye.
everyone. Have a good week.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.